Latinx. Hi everyone, welcome to the first episode of Como Dice la Key. I'm your host Key, and you can also call me Ashley. My pronouns are she, her, hers. And before we begin, let me introduce my guest.
Hello everyone, my name is Leslie and I also go by she, her, hers.
So Leslie, why don't you tell us about what you're currently doing?
Yeah, I'm a second year political science major at UCI.
That's really cool. I also go to UCI.
Oh.
And I'm a second year. So due to us talking about education, why don't you tell us about how you grew up and some of your experiences in school?
Yeah, so I am the second eldest we were pretty middle class. I would say more lower middle class. Yeah, I mean, I grew up in a very predominantly white area of California. It's Central Coast area, really small town, very conservative. And, yeah.
So due to us talking about education, why don't you tell us about how you grew up and some of your experiences in school?
Yeah, so I am the second eldest we were pretty middle class. I would say more lower middle class. Yeah, I mean, I grew up in a very predominantly white area of California. It's Central Coast area, really small town, very conservative. And, yeah.
So in this podcast, we kind of want to go over like gender expectations and how it affects Latinas students. So, we usually think of gender bias in the context of jobs and salary and women not making an equal amount as men. But you can also find it early on in the classroom. Do you believe that being a woman, you face disadvantages in your K through 12 education?
Oh, I mean, definitely. As I mentioned before, I grew up in a very conservative town. So I felt like even the teachers would sometimes say things that were a little bit sexist, you know, like, I mean, I feel like that saying of like, I need two strong boys who can help me like pick this up, or like little things, little comments like that always, it's like, but obviously when you're growing up and you're at such a young age, those little comments do, like, I feel like form some of your opinions that like, oh, that's like a boy's job, or that's like a, but yeah, I mean, like, talking about, and then a lot of my teachers were actually, I feel like I considered like a lot of K through 12, like, I mean, like lower grades, I guess, were predominantly like women. But then as like my education got further, like, I guess I would have more male teachers. Yeah. And so it was kind of like, I don't know, it was this weird experience of like the higher the education, the more men I would see. So, I don't know, higher focused education?
Yeah. You know what? I do agree with like when you said that, like the comments that teachers make. I feel like it could impact the way that students like think of themselves, like in their confidence. If they think like, oh, girls can only do this and guys can only do that, it makes them like rethink their ability to do stuff. Mm-hmm. So sometimes these disadvantages can be on how boys and girls are treated, and like you said. So do you think there were any or are any gender expectations for you?
No, I mean, I don't think I mentioned it, but I am Latina too. Yeah. Like, I don't think we mentioned that, yeah. But I mean, even in my own like being Latina is like its own thing, and in the sense of like gender norms, I feel like it's very an unfortunate gender norm in our culture that is very like my dad was specifically like more like, oh, women have more of a caretaking role, and then men are the ones who earn the big money. Like growing up, I have a younger brother, and I remember he would always emphasize on my brother, like, you need to get a good education so you can make big money and like be able to maintain your family. But for me, it was kind of like, yes, I want you to do better than me. Like, I want you to get a better education, but then at the same time, like, marry a doctor. Mm-hmm. So, it's like those kind of little comments where my mom even is still like, you have to find someone in college that's like a doctor.
Yeah.
And I'm like, Why does that matter if
Yeah.
I'm going to college and I'm doing these things?
Yeah.
But yeah,
It's
I
kind of
feel like definitely, yeah.
I feel like it's discrediting like what you can do. And
Oh,
it's
yeah.
like, I mean, you are political science, so I'm guessing you want to go to law school.
Yeah, I do.
So it's kind of like you're gonna be making that like money.
Yeah.
Like, why do you need someone to do that for you and to care for
Rely
you?
on a partner.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
And it's like one thing to hear it like in your family because it's like, you know, their tradition,
Yeah,
very traditional. But it's another thing to hear from your own teachers where they're like, oh, like this is for STEM, it's for boys, you know. Like it's kind of like, why are you saying that? You're supposed to encourage me.
Yeah.
So yeah. And oftentimes like I feel like girls are expected to be very quiet and like not talk back to teachers. But it's like if you see something, if they talk back, then it's bossy. Or if they like demand for like attention, it's like sometimes it's not because they're looking for that attention in a needy way. It's like they just need help. But it's like mainly focused on like boys. And like I was actually doing a reading where where it said that male students tend to control like the classroom conversation because they like shout out. And I kind of want to give you this like scenario that like was mentioned because I want your opinion. So it was like a teacher and like everyone was in the classroom and she was like, if you raise your hand, like, you know, like I'll call on you, but like please don't shout out. So like everyone was like raising their hands and like she was mainly only choosing the boys and like at one point like they started just calling out and she'd accept the answer. And eventually, like, a lot of the girls started putting their hands down because they weren't getting called on. And she, like, there was one girl who, like, decided to call out. And the teacher actually got mad at her. When she did that and was like, oh, I told you guys to, you know, like, raise your hand and, like, don't shout out. So I want to, like, kind of get your opinion. Like, what do you think about that experience and how would have you reacted?
Wow. I mean, definitely what you touched on about, like, when a guy is more like outspoken, it's like they're seen as like, oh no, they're participating. But it's so true about when a girl takes charge or like I cannot tell you how many times like I was in a group project and I like tended to take charge because I wanted to, you know, get things done, and I would be described as bossy. When someone else would be, like, if it was a guy, it would have been described as, like, oh, wow, look at him taking charge, and look at him, like, following, like, you know. But, like, now that I think about it, all throughout my, like, education, like, especially in, like, more my lower, like, years, like, there was always, like, this, whoa, what was it gonna say? But, yeah, like I was saying, definitely I noticed guys would, like, control more of the conversation when I was younger, especially like in terms of like shouting out. So like that scenario, like I just feel like it's a sad reality. Like I feel like that would have happened in a class that I was in. So I mean, like it's obviously like, you know, even the teacher is like showing preferred like I guess like that she prefers a gender over another, or like I don't know if you mentioned, was the teacher
she was a female.
Wow.
Which is what surprised me too, because I was like, I mean, you've been through that experience too, so you would kind of like think you'd like try to change it, but I feel like we're still stuck like traditionally that we're kind of just like, because she
has like her own bias.
Yeah, they like mentioned it to her where they were like, oh, did you notice you only called on boys? And she was like, oh, like I didn't realize that.
What?
And she like didn't even realize, so it was just kind of like, you know, she didn't know, but it kind of shows like how biased we like are like under the surface, you know.
Wow, that's interesting.
But you actually already answered this question because I was like, I was gonna ask if you've experienced this, but I want to know how like you've managed it like over the years, like because you seem very outspoken, so I kind of want to know like how you've managed to like do that. Just because like when I was like growing up, like I also saw that, so it kind of caused me to be like really shy and like I wouldn't participate in class, and I'm still kind of like that, so sometimes I still don't participate, but I want to know how like you managed it.
I mean, I am political science, and I feel like still today some people within my major, like, you know, guys, like I feel like mansplaining is something that politics is like very male dominated. So I feel like I don't know, I feel that they do think that I know less than I do know. And so I guess how I managed with that is genuinely like just, I mean, I grew up shyer when I was younger, but I also reached a point where I realized like the strength, or I guess like how much passion I had in what I believed and like what I was doing. So I kind of hit this point in my life where I was like, you know what, like a guy's not gonna be the reason why I don't participate, or like the reason why I won't say something because he's like intimidating, or like he's taking over the conversation, so I'm gonna make myself small. So I just kind of like learned that making myself small only hurts me. Like it doesn't benefit me by not actively like sharing my opinion or like taking over the conversation or putting input into the conversation. So I guess it's just about realizing that like doing that and like conforming to gender norms really only hurts you. Like it doesn't, and you're like, you know, benefiting them, and like you're giving them more power. And so I don't know, it's just about like this realization of like kind of like taking back the power, as cheesy as that sounds.
And you're kind of proving their point if like you do like go with those like gender expectations they have for you, you know. So if you speak up, you kind of like shock them. They're like, oh, like you actually do know this. And there's another like example. It's not a scenario, it's just the way students are praised can also have an effect on them, because in the same reading we saw that girls are recognized more on appearance, and they're told like, oh, you look really pretty, I really like your hair. But then boys, when they're praised, is more on like the behavior, like, wow, you're so strong, like, you know, like if he like reads really well, it would be like, wow, you're like really good at reading or something like that, you know. So what message do you think this sends to students when they're praised differently based on like being boy or a girl?
I mean, like I've never really heard a teacher like praise a guy on their appearance. Like, you look nice today. But I've had so many teachers, like when I'll be like, you know, like, I don't know, like, especially, like, female teachers would be like, which is weird, but I guess, like, you know, perpetuating that, like, gender norm, I guess. But, like, they'd be like, oh, you, like, look really pretty today. Or, like, you have, like, your hair looks so nice for picture day. And stuff like that. But, like, it's very true that the guys that would get praised for their academics more than girls. Wow.
But what do you think that like makes them feel?
Oh, jeez. I mean, like, I feel like hearing those kind of compliments at such like formative years, like, when you're young, it makes you want to fish for like, if I look this, like, if I look like this, or I try harder in how I look, I'm gonna get this praise, or I'm gonna get this attention. So I guess it gives like girls this more like need for validation on their appearance, so they focus more on appearance and how they are outwardly like perceived. And then guys, like if they're being focused more on academics, they're gonna want to achieve higher and like better academic kind of like to get that validation in whatever way. So I guess it's just like really forming like what we think we need to be validated on. So
and I think it's just kind of like sad, like that I guess like girls are only focused on appearance, because it's like sometimes like a guy wants to hear that too, you know. Like it's kind of like you want to have something equal where you don't want to just praise one for one thing and the other one for another, because not everyone just wants to be praised on appearance. Some want to be on like their academics and the other one, you know, like vice versa. Okay, so the next question, are there any examples you can think of that are like sex segregation?
Yeah, I mean, like growing up during recess times, I feel like guys were more like playing with like, you know, basketball, they play soccer, they play like, you know, flag football or like kickball, you know, little things like that. And then girls would be more like, I guess in like groups and like their friend groups, and like we'd hang out by like the lunch tables and we'd just be sitting there just talking. And that's also, I feel like that's greatly like due to the reason of like, I feel like sometimes like even me, like, I would try to join something, or I tried to join a group of guys, like, playing, and they'd be like, no, you're a girl. Like, you're like, we don't want to play with you. Like, or you're seen as the weaker link. That they're like, okay, well, you have her on your team, so. Yeah. Like, you know, they don't want you on your team, so you don't feel wanted, and it's like, I guess, like, gender norms. Like, they're like, boys are good at sports, and girls are more just, you know, there to look pretty or something, you know.
I think it goes back to what we mentioned earlier, that like boys are like stronger than girls, so it's like where you said that you're seen as like the weakest one. Yeah. So it's kind of like you can also see that when like the teachers pass out like their own equipment. Like I've been in classes where they've given me like a jump rope or a hula hoop, and then the guys like automatically get like the soccer ball or stuff like that. So it's like even the teachers are kind of enforcing that. And like, I mean, if you're a little kid, what are you gonna do? Like fight the teacher? You can't just do that, you know. And it's like you kind of get stuck with what you get. Because like I was always stuck going to like the jungle gym. I mean, I enjoyed the jungle gym. It's the jungle gym. But like Sundays I wanted to play soccer and I wasn't allowed to. So it was like, or not allowed to, but they wouldn't accept me. And like, why would I be somewhere where like they don't accept me and they don't they don't take me. Yeah, they don't take like, you know, what I can do. But yeah, so speaking of like earlier we mentioned like receiving attention from like teachers. In like another reading, it mentioned that students receive attention in order from like white male students, males of color, white females, and females of color. Do you think that being a woman of color affected the way you were treated by like teachers or administrators?
Oh god, yeah. I mean, like I mentioned before, I grew up in a predominantly white town. So in a majority of my classes, especially towards high school, I was like one of the only women of color. So, I mean, I feel like in my high school, women of color were seen as, like, they're just there to, like, you know, have fun, or, like, they're the ones, like, I feel like something that was, like, they're the ones that are more at risk for getting pregnant. It's something that I would constantly feel, like, I was more at risk than, like, this white girl that was in my class for getting pregnant. And that's like such a weird it's like over sexualizing women of color. And so I feel like that was something that I faced a lot. That even me, like, I was scared. I was like, what if I end up pregnant? Like by the end of this like high school experience. But definitely I feel like there's like this stereotype of like they're not going to finish high school. They're not going to go to college. Like, they might, like, finish high school, but then they'll find someone who, like, makes good money. And then they'll
take care of them.
Yeah, who will take care of them.
Which is, like, what our parents kind of tell us, too.
Exactly.
Do you think that, because you mentioned, like, you know, kind of, like, policing your body. I feel like that's what teachers did a lot.
Oh, yeah.
I was going to say, do you, like, obviously you've experienced that. Do you think that benefited you? Like, your education, when teachers would tell you, like, oh, cover up, like, this. Cover your shoulders or, like, your elbows. Like,
not at all. I feel like whenever I got dress coded once, and it wasn't, like, I wasn't even, like, showing the skin that much. Yeah. And now that you mentioned it, I feel like, looking back at it, women of color got way more dress coded than white girls at my school, at least. And, but wait. But yeah, I mean, definitely I don't see how it would ever benefit you. Yeah. I feel like it's embarrassing when people get dress coded. When I got dress coded that one time, I felt very embarrassed. Yeah. And it made me feel bad for having a body. Yeah. Like, you know, it's like, I feel like by policing our bodies, or like saying, and then of course, like, boys aren't as policed over their bodies. For us, it's like, cover your shoulders, cover that, don't be a distraction. Yeah. But for guys, they'd be wearing some questionable things, but they wouldn't get dress coded. Yeah. But like, it's like, definitely, like, the policing is also like adding to the like over sexualization of our bodies.
Yeah. No, yeah. I feel like at least in my like high school, when like I'd be walking around, like there'd literally be guys shirtless.
Yeah.
And they'd be like security like right there because like where I'm from, it's like we had like police and security, so it was like heavily policed. So we would have like all of them just there, and they never told them anything. But the one time I decided to wear like a little crop top, which wasn't even short. It was literally like it just showed my belly button. I was dress coded, and I was like, oh, like it's kind of embarrassing, like you said, because it's like what I can't help it if it's hot right now, you know.
Yeah.
Like you can't help that you're trying to dress for the weather. And then sometimes we've had guys like come in with like shirts and they have like basically porn on it, and it's like you're gonna dress code me for showing my belly button, but this guy is showing porn on his shirt or like drugs, you know,
girl, like in a bikini on her shirt.
Yeah, so it's kind of like if you're gonna dress code like someone, at least dress code everyone that needs it. Like don't just dress code someone for showing their shoulders, because what is that gonna do?
I know
it's gonna do
like a distraction. I don't know.
Wait, I want to kind of go back to what you said about how you were one of the few like women minorities in your class. How did that make you like feel, like just knowing that you were one of the few?
I mean, I don't know, it was very segregated in my school. It was very much like the white people were in like the higher level kind of classes, and so that's why I was one of the few. So it was literally like me and my best friends that were the like only ones in these AP classes, and everyone else was white. So I was used to being around only white people, and I don't know, it made me feel like I had like a double like an identity crisis kind of thing, because I'm obviously like Hispanic, and like I'm used to being around people that like speak Spanish and stuff like that, but then I felt like this pressure to act more white when I was with the white people, like seem more educated, you know, kind of thing. And that was something that was constantly told, like I was constantly told that they're like, oh, your first language is Spanish, you speak English really well for someone who had the first language as Spanish. And I thought that, I never saw that as backhanded until honestly I got to college. Because I always heard it, and they're like, you know, you're pretty smart for a Mexican, or you're pretty smart for like you're like not the like. So it made me feel, obviously, like looking back at it, I'm like, how messed up was that? Like being told all these other things that like of course these white people weren't hearing. And then it also made me feel like I had to work like twice as hard to be at the same, or to be seen at the same level or the same like status as like my fellow white, like, you know, peer. And I felt like definitely I would see the different opportunities. The white people would get more, like I would hear about them doing more things, more academic things, and then it was kind of like I would always hear of it after it had already happened. So like I felt like they kind of like, I don't know, teachers like offered them more opportunities than they offered me. And I would kind of be like the second thought, like the afterthought, like, oh, you can join if you wanted to. Like, you know?
No, I felt at least like in my high school, it was mainly like Black and Latino students. So I never had that experience, but I did have the experience of like I'd go to different schools like for like competitions or things like that, and I'd like talk to like the students there where it was like predominantly white students, and I'd see like everything they were doing, and I was like, am I not doing enough? But it's like no one at my school ever showed me that. So it's like for me it was like kind of like school wise, but like I think it's crazy how it happens like in your school as well. Like I feel like you shouldn't feel like you're segregated in your own school. You know,
definitely.
And speaking of like just how your like hometown is, like you've mentioned it like a lot in here, so how easy do you think it would be to advocate, or how hard do you think it'd be easy how hard or easy do you think it'd be to advocate for women of color in your hometown?
Well, my hometown recently voted on limiting the amount of ethnic studies classes in my high school, so I just want to start off with that. My town, I felt like that also is why I got into politics, because of my hometown. It would be very difficult very difficult to like advocate for more like, you know, or like more resources or representation for women of color, or like to address these issues, just because whenever it's been brought up, I remember whenever I would participate a lot in protests, and I helped organize one at my high school as well, and we would always get a lot of backlash from admin and from people in our town. There's like special Facebook group that always talks about like whenever there's a protest, especially like when Black Lives Matter was happening, they'd always go crazy on that and be like, you know, these kids are dumb, or like these kids don't know what they're talking about, and it's all these white people, like white elderly people. So it'd be very difficult. I feel like my city councilmen are all white men, so very difficult.
As you mentioned, it's like you said, it's very difficult and like to do any change, and you gave examples of that. Do you think that anything can be done? Like, how do you know how you would go about that? Like, you or like society as a whole?
I mean, I guess I'll just give the example of my high school. Again, since I was talking about that, it's by saying that it's really hard, I feel like that shouldn't be mistaken as it's impossible, because there would be no progress if we thought of you know, gender that way, or like gender progression, or like, you know, that way. I feel like it's students. There was a recent like activist like coalition group started up at my high school with a bunch of students that are passionate about this was my senior year, so it got cut short because of COVID, but they're an active group now, and they're very much like advocating for change. And they always like, they did like this big protest about when like especially now with the different bills going around different states about like transgender rights and like different LGBTQ plus things. They did like a protest that involved like a lot of teachers that did agree with that, and they like invited like city councilmen and like board members to listen to them. And so I guess it's kind of just you know, even when they trying to make it so they listen to you, like try to make like these, they're doing these bold moves to even if they are getting a lot of backlash from the community, it's about having like that kind of perseverance of because no real change ever happens easily, or like without any backlash from people that, you know, that want to keep the norm. So I feel like just I mean, even in general, like not even just within my high school, just really advocating for those things and not taking no like as an answer. So it's, and then also I feel like it's about community, finding people, like that's why they were able to like be successful. They found people that believe the same things within that community that's very like likes to keep it the, you know, status quo, very white, but they found each other, and they formed this coalition, and they are doing these things. And so I feel like community is very important when trying to make change as well, like making sure grassroots kind of thing, like making sure you have people. And I mean, if it's just one person, like I feel like it's not as loud, of course, as like a bunch of people. So making sure you gather that support and like find people that believe the same thing.
I mean, definitely, if we look through history, everything like goes as a group. But as long as we educate and advocate, we will have a change. So thank you for like being here. Thank you for accepting the invitation. This concludes our first episode. Make sure to check back. I post every week. So thank you. Bye.